do it, Sherry. Welcome to Spark TV. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Danielle. How are you?
I'm so good. We were just saying strong coffees and teas all round today. So just fueling us today instead of wine, which is necessary after the day, after your day and my start to the day. But so good. I'm so excited to hear and share your story with the Spark community. So let's just get straight in and start there. Let's tell
Do
everyone
it.
who you are and what you do.
Oh, great question. Who am I? Um,
How long do we have?
I, honestly, I'm a student of the music industry. Wouldn't call myself an expert. I think being an expert in something that's rapidly changing at all times, and that's ever evolving. I would never, I'm a student of the music industry. I've been in it for about 16 years. I started out as management when I really didn't know what I was doing, and I figured it out, and then I knew what I was doing. And did that for about 8 years. I loved it. I loved touring. I loved taking care of artists. And then I realized that I wanted to do something really groundbreaking. I wanted to disrupt the industry in a way that we could create solutions for people in different silos of the music industry that desperately needed it. The first silo that I wanted to go after was ticketing. I wanted to create basically an like a ticketing platform where it was made for an artist, it was commission free, it gave me all the tools I would have needed as a manager. And so I created it myself. And this is also when I was like, uh, I grew up on welfare. Like, I've never had money. I literally scraped together all the cash I had just so I could create prototypes. I went and found investors. Benji and Joel Madden partnered with me on this venture. Fast forward during the pandemic, all of our tickets went off sale because obviously we were a
Mm,
ticketing company.
mhm.
So within one call, we decided to pivot to live streaming. And the year that was supposed to kill us, we grossed 10 million.
Wow.
We landed 4,000 clients and we sold at a 30 million valuation.
Holy shit.
So if anyone ever tells you, oh, that sounds like it's harder, I don't know, or like, hey, only 2% of startups succeed, fine, be the 2%.
hmm
So I didn't want to stop there. That was one silo that I was like, check. And then I thought to myself, and I was just like, you know what? I feel like all the solutions that are created, my own first company as a great example, it's an ancillary income that we are creating for artists because why? Because we've just learned to accept that artists just make money from touring and they don't really see money from their own masters. And I just went, huh. And I was in management for a while. I did a ton of like contracts. I've worked with all the different majors, all the different indies, and I just said to myself, the core of the model just needs a rapid shift, not a slight shift, definitely not a copy and paste, but a massive makeover. And the same way that you wouldn't call Uber a better taxi, we're not a better label. We're a VC for artists. That is what Verswire is. This is why literally all of our merch says we're not a label. We're our own category because we're doing things so differently, and we've introduced a new business model, which I'm honored to say works. We first raised a little bit to go ahead and first prove our case study. Our case study was Beauty School Dropout. We use this new model where we basically invest in artists, we take equity, and then we bring in our label services team to run their label service as part of their business. And then our A&Rs are what do you know? Like multi-platinum gold artists such as Mark Hoppus and Pete Wentz. So when I say, hey, let's change this song here, versus when Mark says let's change it, they're gonna listen to the man that's I would too. So it's we brought the best of the best, and Mark and Pete really A&R the project really well. And we surprised ourselves. We went from a total of 4 million streams for the band to 60 million now.
Wow.
We found them in a corner of a thrift store playing to 100 people. The same year they opened for Blink in Madison Square Garden, and
Oh
we're
my
on full
God.
tour with them. So that led us to a total of $12.3 million raised, a partnership with Cobalt, and a vision that works.
That is incredible.
Thanks.
Oh my God. And so much to actually unpack. So
I know
let's
I literally just put 16 years into like 2 minutes.
No, but
Sorry.
I love it because well, a few reasons why I love it. I love it because you weren't a tech person coming into a tech-based industry and deciding that there was a problem, that things needed to change, and why not have a crack at it, which I
Yeah.
absolutely adore. And I love that, one business exit wasn't enough. Let's do it. Let's do it again. So let's go all the way
Why
back to,
not?
well, hell yeah, right? It can be done now, which is so cool.
There you go. When I tell people I have an idea, they listen to me now. They're like, yes.
Yeah. Well, actually, and so let's skip forward. Do you find that now that you've actually been on paper a success, that things are a little bit easier the second time around?
Yes, I will say that. I think some things are easier and some things are harder. I think it's
Mm.
easier to get people like if you're like, "Hey, let's hop on a call. I want to talk about your client," or I want to, they will take your call. What I think is
Mm.
harder is their expectations are very, very high in terms of, for example, spend or resources, which isn't a bad thing, but it's also just like, okay, like there's a lot of negotiation there. But I'll still say, I mean, I'll say this until the cows come home, like being a woman in the music industry it gets easier as you get older, but it's still hard. And then never mind my first company, I went for the two most male dominated industries,
Yeah, I
music.
was like, and
And
tech,
I was like,
hello.
yeah, that's fine. And I was like, we started Veeps when I was like, we started like, the prototypes and everything when I was 24. Girl. And I always looked younger than I actually was. So they're like, oh, she's 18. I'm like, hey, I'm 24.
You're like, I know what I'm doing. It's
I
fine.
know. I know.
That's super interesting though. Young music industry, tech industry. I mean, what are the challenges? Hit me with a couple of them.
People don't just by default assume you don't know what you're doing. People by
Mm.
default assume that there's men that came up with your idea, not you. Oh, the like literally the most ridiculous things. People um assume that you don't have the ability to lead a team because you're either
Mm.
going to be too nice or bitchy. Because like what the one thing that I will always say about a woman is there's no sweet spot. We're not just,
Mm.
oh, she's a leader. She's either bitchy or too nice. She's either overreacting or it lets everyone walk all over her. She's either like a boss. No, she's not a boss. She's never a boss. She's
You
either
might be a boss bitch.
yeah, she's either a boss bitch
Yeah.
or like it's just there's no sweet spot. And we don't say these things
Mm.
about men. We don't. And so I realized a long time ago is like I'm never gonna be in a position where like I just get normal feedback like, oh okay, that was cool. That was cool. Yeah, it's just like it's just you're either too much or not enough.
Yeah.
And and
How did you
it's
deal with that?
I'm
I mean,
still dealing.
obviously you just went, fuck off, I'm doing it anyway.
I did. No,
But
I
what,
mean
how did you manage it?
I'd be lying if I said that I still don't deal with it. I mean, look, do I deal with it as much? Not nearly as much, probably like 10% compared to like how much it really used to get to me.
Mm.
But truly, like I just kind of took the disfeel as like, all right, I'm just gonna prove you wrong. But I also like I don't let things like if someone's blatantly being disrespectful or just, using their, just being painfully chauvinistic and stuff, I'll just call it out, but I'll do it quickly and then I'll
Mm.
move on.
Yeah.
So for example, like, if someone's just being very sexist or rude, I'll just be like, "That's a very rude comment you made," and they're not used to being called
Yeah.
like out like that because usually they're like you can't have emotion behind it, which is ridiculous because I'm a human being and like, you're the one that's, for example, saying something that's inappropriate or whatever. But you have to do it in like a completely blunt, like, okay, that
Mm.
was a very rude comment. I'd appreciate you not say that again. Okay, so moving on. Like you have to call it out, but what
Yeah.
I've realized is the second you show any type of reaction, because we're not women aren't allowed to react,
Mm-hmm.
then you're being emotional.
Yeah.
Then or you know just unstable. And it's like it's so interesting the labels we get that men don't. If a man reacts to disrespect, you're like, yeah, like get him, like and
Yeah,
we don't do that.
exactly.
And it's so
Mm.
interesting, but I'm like, don't let things slide, but don't like
Let
don't
them
get too
derail the
into
situation. Yeah.
totally, totally. Ring it and like trust me, like I'd be lying if I said it still doesn't bother me sometimes, but I call it out calmly,
Mm.
swiftly, and I move on. And you'd be surprised
Mhm.
it actually doesn't happen again because there's a strength to that. There's a power to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's fucking annoying.
Yes, it drives me wild. My first business was a tech business, And it was interesting. So the first networking event I ever went to, I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Of course, it was a room full of men. I think there was three girls, three women there. And I just remembered, so this guy was drinking a beer, and of course, when he was talking, he was like spitting, and he was like, I don't know how you ever think this is going to happen. Like, you're young, you're blonde, this is the tech industry. And I'm like, I walked out of there so determined. I was like, are you
Oh,
kidding me? I
no,
was
but
so
you know
cool.
what it is? That's ridiculous. And I'm so sorry you had to
Mm.
go through that. But I also, in a weird way, take it as like okay, you're threatened by me. Interesting.
Oh,
Because the way I look at it is, I don't think a secure person would ever feel the need to put down a young woman.
yeah.
And the people that have put me down routinely in the past and, some whatever, I don't give a shit because I'm like, how insecure do you have to feel about yourself to put down a young woman and go
Mm.
back on your high? We're like, okay, okay, if that makes you feel better, carry on. Now
Yeah.
watch. Now
Yeah.
watch what I'm
I love
like.
that.
You gotta let it roll off, or else you will lose your mind. You have to.
Oh,
And it's again, it's
absolutely.
the joy and curse of being a female.
Yeah, I know, and it's funny the way I've probably taken a similar tack to you in the sense of using it to fuel my determination and fuel my fire. But yeah, I love that idea of actually saying, okay, so I'm being underestimated a little bit here. Maybe I've got an opportunity to actually shine because you're all underestimating what I'm about to do.
Totally, totally. And just watch. I mean, give they want to talk about you, give them something to talk about.
I love that so much. So, going from welfare to starting a tech business, that's a huge leap. So, you
Dude.
talked about being in management. How did you
Mhm.
get there? How did you go from welfare to managing artists to then tech platform? Like, what was that process like for you? Did you just wake up one morning and say, that's it, I'm starting a business? Did you educate yourself? Like, what was that initial ideation phase like for you?
Of course. I always say that you should turn welfare is not easy. That's what I grew up in as a child. I was moved around 20 different times to 4 different countries, a lot of instability.
Mm,
And no, I mean, I think everyone's upbringings are different, but no one kind of like has an unscathed one.
mm,
And we're all just healing from whatever we've gone through. Yeah. And I think the best thing that I ever heard was turn your pain into purpose.
mm,
And I wanted to turn it into purpose and art. So funny enough, when I was like, like troubled childhood, whatever, but I loved shows and I wasn't allowed to go because my parents just thought that's where people did drugs and all that stuff. And I'm like,
of
what?
course.
They watch too much TV. So what I would do is I would, for example, say I was going to quote unquote Stacy's house. And then I would lie and go to the show, but I had to go early because my alibi had to make sense. And by the way, my parents know that I lied after the fact. Like, years later, I was like, by the way. And so I'd get to the shows, and these were my friend shows, these were local shows, and I would just show up and be like, hey, can I help? Can I set up merch? Can I? Because I was there, and they'd be like,
Mm,
sure. Because I was so helpful a few times, they're like, hey, we don't have a manager. Do you want to manage us? And I was like 16. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I was like,
wow.
sure. And I literally studied and Googled, and every mentor I could get a hold of, I would call and just be like, hey, can I just sit with you and just understand what it is to be a manager? And I learned very quickly. And then I started managing more bands. Then I started going on tour. Then I was on Warp Tour for 8 years. And then I really was very good at what I did. And then management companies picked me up. And I really loved it. But my transition from management to starting my company is I wanted to do something incredible in this world, and I wanted to leave this industry better than I found it.
Mm,
And with managing artists, I could only service like 7 at a time. I wanted to change the game. I wanted to help thousands at a time. And I knew I couldn't do that with management. You just can't. There's not enough hours in the day. And I said to myself, I'm like, I always wanted to be in entertainment. I kind of just fell into music because of my of my bait and switch lies. Whoops. Hey, it worked,
worked
whatever.
out. Yeah.
I know, right? But yeah, I was just like, okay. And I really sat literally on my bedroom floor in my shitty apartment, and I was like, all right, what can I do? What are some solutions I can think of for this industry? And I've always been really good with ideas. It's literally my last name backwards. Not even kidding. If you look at it, that's what it is.
Oh my
Um,
God. I
which is
just
extra
realized that
easy.
now I'm looking at your name on the screen. Oh, that's so cool.
It's actually, yeah. And I thought of Veeps very quickly. I'm like, huh. And then I started kind of like mapping it out and doing some research. And I was like, I closed my laptop and at that time I was living in DC. I've never had much money before this whole you know, company, but I was like, I went out to California, met with all my friends and potential investors, and I flew back and forth 4 times. And
Mm,
by the time I met my, my investors and partners, I had $80 in my bank account. I was beyond broke. I didn't have enough money to send myself home even after that. I had to call my friend to have her Venmo me just $100 so I can get a one-way flight back home. And when I moved to LA to start this whole venture, I just had enough money for a mattress and I stacked up boxes um, as a nightstand. I was 24 and I was just like, okay, this is going to be a really good story one day.
yes.
Here we are.
Oh my God, I love that. I love it. Okay, so many levels there because I think so going back to being at the shows and helping people out, like you were there a bit early because you were
Yeah.
lying to your parents, all good. But it's like, I feel like today people don't want to work for free. There's this funny thing. So back in my day, because I'm an old person, I did internships, right? And nowadays you can't do free internships. Like you've got to pay people and it's all regulated and what have you. But I was like, I just wanted to get out there and learn as much as I could and get in front of the people that nobody else could get in front of. And I mean, I just think there's, something powerful about being helpful, which is
There's
exactly
so
what you did.
You're absolutely right. But you know what the most powerful thing through like that entire journey of mine, it just thus far is take your ego out of it.
Yeah.
Learn. I still consider myself a student of the music industry. I don't care. Like all these titles and whatever, man. Just show up
Mhm.
and just be grateful and eager to learn because
Mm.
had I not done that, I wouldn't have the skill sets that I, have been able to get throughout the course of my career. Just learn and also like figure it out. Like that's also one of those things where I think in general like of course it's easier for someone to sit you down and like tell you this and that, but also like Google is the best thing ever. Like you can literally
Yeah.
research and learn on your own and just be eager and also like don't let statistics and don't let people's words of like it's always jealousy statistics. Okay, whatever, like I said, 2% of startups succeed. Be be confident enough that you're going to be the 2% and really believe that. And I don't know if it's delusion, but it helps me. Like look, like I
I
knew
love
in my
it.
with no context, no money, like I just knew when I started my job, like my
Mm.
journey in the music industry when I was 16, I'm like, I'm gonna do something. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna do something. And if you don't believe in you, no one's gonna believe in you. It has to start with you. Like you emulate that. And like it's just be hungry and put your ego
Yeah.
down. Just be like, okay, teach me. No, I don't know. So please teach me. Or look it up or research.
Throw
Look
it
on
out.
TikTok. I mean, any like there's so much information out there for you to get what you need and succeed at what you're trying to get at.
Mm.
And it's a shame to never be able to reach the full potential of who you are just because you're afraid of failing. There's no such thing
Oh,
as keep going, you know?
yes. That's it. I love that. There's a good one that's the only time you fail is when you actually stop. So just
Oh,
don't stop.
100%.
Mm.
Do you know how many times I have bankrupted myself? And if I stopped, I never would have been able to change the lives of so many of our clients.
Mm.
I am honored that I get to say that, but it's because I didn't give up. It wasn't the entrepreneur journey is the most roller coaster ride of your life.
Yeah.
And you just feel like you're on top of the world, and the next second you'll just be like, what am I doing with my life? And you're haggling over $2 for like a smoothie because you're paying your
That's
team and
it.
you have
Yeah.
enough money for yourself. Like you will question yourself so much, but just keep going because the universe will fall in love with a stubborn heart. Just keep going, one foot in front of the other.
That's so good. It reminds me, so you talked about your capital raising process. So flying back and forth from DC. having pennies to your name. I remember when I started my capital raising journey, I didn't even know somebody that could lend me $100, let alone invest 100,000. I was like, oh my God. So I love your point about just go find it, figure it out, research it, Google it. That's literally what I did. I was like, who invests in Australia? It's like
Totally. Oh my
crazy.
God, look it up. Ask, like, take a million meetings. And people, even
Yes.
with my, I'm not even exaggerating with you, even with my second company, I had an amazing win. I had a case study of like, I know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah.
Was it easy to raise money the second time? Yes. Did I still take 200 investment meetings to land seven? Yes. And you're going to have moments where you're screaming in your car and you're tired. Just do it. Just, it will work out.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those things where people don't owe you your money, owe you their money. And it's
Mm.
investing is a really big deal. I literally would be like, I would sit with people. I'm like, who do you think I should just talk to? And they're like, these five people. And I set up five meetings. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting. But it's also like, this wasn't like, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And if you
Yeah.
wanted to be incredible, swing for the fences.
I love that too. I love that you said you took 200 meetings because I feel like people, especially when it comes to investment, they're like, okay, who are like the top two people that would invest in my company that are in the right niche that are, and I'm like, oh, that's not how it works.
Oh, no, 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 no. You
Oh,
gotta hit everyone, speak to everyone and their mother.
mm,
Sometimes your investment might completely come out of left field because you took a random meeting that you didn't even know
yes.
where it would go, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. And this is my second time, by the way. The first time was significantly harder
Yeah.
because, I had been in the industry for about 8 years at that point, and I knew a lot of people, but who's to say I know how to run a company? You know what I mean? And I did. I do.
You knew that you knew how to run a
knew.
company.
I knew, and I believed in me, and people believed in it. And the thing about raising money is like you don't raise like uh well the first times, right?
Mm,
You're not looking for that $1 million paycheck. You're looking for $100,000 tops to get you going.
yeah.
Prove your concept, then raise more. Prove it again. Raise, and you have to. That
Yeah.
if it's your first go around, you have to do it that way. Then when it's your second and third and fourth, it'll work a lot faster. You could to ask for larger sums if it makes sense, if your business needs it. But if you take three investment meetings and and all three say no and you get discouraged, keep going because
Yeah.
I took 200 for my second company.
Yeah, I love that because, and I love actually that you talked about the staged investments as well, because I do feel like when it is your first time, you've got to prove to people that you will do what you say you're going to do. That was the biggest thing I found. It's like every time I'd come back and say, hey, you know how you gave me that money and I said I was going to do X, Y, Z? Well, I did that and this is what's next. And that, I
Totally.
think that was the power.
Totally. And it's just one of those things where I really do think that, like, I think everyone has a lot of great ideas, but it all comes down to
Mm,
execution. Because one of the things that
mm.
people would say to me with my first company, Beeps, and even with Verswire, where they're like, well, aren't you scared someone's going to take your idea and do it themselves? I'm like, go for it. I'm like, you don't have me.
Yeah.
Like, you think Veeps didn't take 7 million pivots? And do you think like anyone else could have pivoted in the middle of a pandemic to a live stream company? I'd never done a live stream before.
Mm,
And then scale and then handle 4,000 artists and $10 million of gross rep. Or like even my existing company, Verswire, like yeah, how many times we've like adjusted and like, made sure we had the most amazing resources and team. I would love for there to be more Versewires because it just proves that the model works and it just proves that
mm.
there's a real need out there. But I'm not afraid of competition. Take my idea. You don't have my team. Period.
Yeah. That's it. And I don't think people understand how hard execution is. A, you don't have me, B, you don't have the team, you don't have the persistence to just keep going when it is tough.
I know. I know. And like you're gonna have your days, but just remember
Mm,
they're just their thoughts, their moments, let them pass and show up the next day because it's like I think a lot of people just want, for example, like the final product. Let's just say it's a house. That's your final product. And you're looking at the house and you're like, "Man, like that's what I want." It's like, "Cool. Well, why don't you just lay down a brick every single day? Just lay down a brick." And you might get frustrated. You might just be like this brick is like meaningless. It's just a brick. Well, if you keep laying down a brick every single day, you're going to turn around and like then you'll have your house. But
Yeah.
there's no shortcut because easy come, easy go. You want something fast? Fine, you got a paper house.
Yeah.
Like, period. It doesn't work that way. And I tell people like, I had really great success in my management days, but it was still like a lot of grinding and like, it took for like my first win when we like real win when I sold Veeps, it took 13 years for my life to change in a day.
Yeah. Talk to me about
You know,
that. So talk to me about selling a business. How did that come about?
it was really cool. It's I mean, it's like, that's your moment. That's like
Yeah.
we sold half, so I'm still an owner, and I'm very happy to say that. But that was like our fourth offer for acquisition. And it was one of those things where like I didn't want to sacrifice the integrity of my company. I wanted to make sure all my entire team they had job security. And this was the best move for my team, all the clients that trusted us, and the future of the company. And it aligned. I mean, it was these things take a minute.
Yeah.
Um, but I would just say that, when you're nearing to the point, like this wasn't an exit, it was more of a JV because we're still like me and my partners are still owners. But it's
Mm,
like just don't lose the integrity of why you did what you did. And if
yeah.
someone wants to come in, like sometimes people come in to buy you just to get rid of you. That is 100% a fact. Some
Mm,
people come in, buy you, and then want to change everything that you worked so hard to build. What's the point?
yeah.
And I will say, hold off for the right deal. Make sure that you just I go to sleep so soundly at night because I like have made sure that my team, my clients have always been taken care of. And if you lead with that, things will work out better than you could have ever imagined. Because had we, for example, taken some other deals, that wouldn't have been the case. And we waited for the right one. And it was a huge moment. I bought myself sushi that night. I remember
Wow, you really went all out.
I know, I splurged. I know, I splurged. It was weird. It was weird because it was 13 years that I've like, at that point I'd been working so hard. And then literally
Mm.
my life changed in a day and I was like, oh, uh, cool, let's do it all over again. And then I'm like, God damn it, Sherry.
Was there any kind of rest in between?
Um, I don't I like working. I enjoy
Yeah.
it. I did go to Europe for like a month, but I was working all throughout that. I was like already brainstorming the business model for Verswire and stuff. I did a little Euro trip, but I honestly was just so excited to come back and just do it all over again because it is exciting. It's a lot of work.
Mhm.
It's a lot of work, but it's fun to do the impossible, you know? And that's actually a tattoo that I have on my arm. It's actually a Walt Disney quote. His exact quote, it's kind of fun to do the impossible because it is. It's when people question you, doubt you, when you're the 2%, like that feels great. And I think that statistic would go up higher if people really took the chances they've always wanted to take and just believe in themselves because it's not about how much money you have, it's not about how famous you are. I didn't have anything.
Mm.
And I believed. That's it.
I love it so much. Now, I feel like I could talk to you all day, but let's leave the Spark community with one last thought. So I always like to ask our guests if you could reflect on one piece of advice that has served you well over your time in business that you would pass on to another woman in her journey, what would it be?
Ooh. One? All right, let me
I
think.
know. How long do we have?
I know, I know. Um, God, I really have to think about that because I want to make sure I leave it with all in, like one that kind of ties it all together. Let me think.
You can do multiple if you like as well.
Honestly, I would say, I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, no matter what, don't give up
Mm,
because anyone that questions you is clearly threatened by you. And what I would also say is, um, don't wait for anyone to, in any sense, whether it's a man or even another woman or anyone, don't wait for anyone to save you. Don't wait for anyone to come in and swoop you. Like, be the hero. Be your own goddamn hero. One foot in front of the other every single day. You can do it. And if I could just literally tell this to every woman for the rest of my life ever, I would. I would. And that's it.
You are amazing. Thank you so much, Sherry, for sharing your journey and your wisdom with the Spark community. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. So much fun. Thank you.